We've had one Halloween game, yes, but what about a second Halloween game? Hello and welcome to the Battle and Barrow and another D&D waffle session. Yes, as I alluded to in my intro there, this is a second Halloween game. This is my player's real Halloween game. Now I should explain, when it comes to YouTube and making videos, there is a schedule-ish that you kind of abide to. So just because you saw things on when the Halloween video went out, that doesn't mean it was played around that time. It was played a few weeks beforehand, and because of scheduling with players, getting them there into the room in one place, I had to let them know this is, quite an important video for the channel. It's the Halloween game, so they went into this game fully aware that it was a Halloween game and there were spooky shenanigans that were going to go on. Didn't make it any less fun, but they were prepared for it. So when it comes to this video was actually recorded on the 30th, on the day before the Halloween video went out, and it was the weekend of Halloween. Now, the players went into this game being knowing that they'd played the Halloween game, and this was going to be something different, something new. So that was the perfect mood to get them in, to give them a little curveball and have a Halloween game. And so this one is based on Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay's adventure called The Night of Blood, which is just about stopping off at a roadside tavern and having this evil plot unfold. And so, but first we needed to get them on the road to this tavern. So with that, we had Gellin. It was the aftermath of the fog. The town's a bit trying to pull itself back together, and Gellin is trying to get his business, the sort of smuggling business that he's trying to arrange with the players. They're calling themselves the Tempest, which is like, so we now have the Iron Ring, the Velk Society, the Kingdom of Thieves, and now the Tempest as a fourth faction in this criminal world. But he has a contact called Willow the Merchant, who is the type of guy, he's a strange small character of a stutter, but he's the type of guy that could sell trees to wood elves, so it'd be perfect to unload and fence goods. The problem is he's fell on hard times. His ship got sunk just offshore, and he lost most of his merchandise, and so he's trying to get back on his feet, and he's trying to arrange a business deal with a guy called Brass. And if anyone's played Advanced Fighting Fantasy, this story itself may be familiar. I'm running two adventures at once here. This is from the Black Sand, original Black Sand book, from that. But yes, so I'm also on that. I'm going to probably go into this in a different video at some point, but I'm also moving Port Black Sand into my campaign world, just north to where we are now in the Black Eagle Barony. But yes, so Brass comes from Port Black Sand. Because of this, Waldo is a bit nervous, so he has asked Gellin if he could help him find some bodyguards just while this business deal goes down. It's like for about, bottom line is the deal's for, Waldo's got 2,000 gold. He's going to use that to buy some merchandise off Brass, and then he's got a buyer for it already for 8,000 gold. So already he's going to be turning a profit. But he's a bit wary of Brass, being he's from Black Sand, Port Black Sand, and he's worried about his life. So he's asked Gellin to help him secure some bodyguards, and that is where our players come in. Gellin asked the players if they will travel to Miram village to meet up with Waldo to oversee the deal. There should be no complications whatsoever. He's asked them to go via using his personal carriage, because Miram's about 2 days journey out. He says one day, after one day, they should come across a roadside inn that they can spend the night at. He also mentions this inn has the best wine he has ever tasted. So they agree. There's still no sign of Anirophel, but we'll get to him next week. Galen also has a job for him to do. So Walker and Gelfenwith board the carriage, and they're a bit sad because they've lost Wolfie. I should explain to my players, I did say there'll be another opportunity right at the beginning of this game to maybe get another animal companion for Ranger. I've decided it was going to be a dire wolf, and so we start with a wolf encounter. So I had promised our players in this game that it would be a lighter affair after the horrors of the Fog Halloween game. Not really. Kind of trying to keep a straight face, as like not really at all. So we begin our adventure in a carriage, having a nice ride through the forest. They knew that there was going to be a wolf-based combat to allow Walker to get a new animal companion, and so when the evening come and the sun set and it got dark, they were fully prepared when I said, you now hear the howls of wolves. Now, I did want to up this combat to make them think that it was still going to be a challenge, even though it wasn't. As such, it was just 5 wolves and a dire wolf. Now, my intent was, and Walker did indeed go for this, is to have that as the companion. You know, it's a leveled up wolf. They're higher level than what they were when they got the wolf companion, so it makes sense. So whilst there was a dire wolf there, and it was the combat seemed more so than normal, they were still expecting it. But then I also threw in, as there's a storm had started now, and the sky's lighting up with lightning. I said, in the distance, you can see the wolf pack leaders, 2 werewolves standing up a few hundred yards away. So that put a bit of panic into this combat, because they know the last time they met werewolves it didn't go well. So it made it a bit more interesting. I knew that the werewolves were just there for show. They didn't. They thought I saw it as a pretty much good threat, that they would have to do what they wanted to do with the wolves before the werewolves come in and ruined their time. What happened was, Witchy Poo, Gelfenwith wanted to do what happens in Van Helsing movie, where they're doing the carriage chase, and that's pretty much how I was playing this out as well. She wanted to jump onto the roof to lay some fire spell damage to the wolves, because leaning out the window where the wolves were positioned, she couldn't quite get a bead upon them. So she tries, fails a roll, and ends up hanging, trips up and hangs half in the carriage and half out the carriage, hanging onto the door as it's buffering, with the wolves now rushing in to bite her heels. This goes on like this for a bit. I don't want to go too much into it because this isn't the story. This is just the how Ranger gets his new companion. So they dispatch the wolves, and Ranger spends a few rounds taming the dire wolf, which he succeeds, and we're going to have a mechanic where it's not quite tame yet due to it being a bigger beastie, and every so often I will roll the dice, and if it goes well, great. If not, when Ranger tries to do something to the wolf, I'll interject and go, nope, wolf disobeys you, and calamity happens. But we get the wolf, get the dire wolf and dispatch the other wolves, and they hear the howl of the werewolves in anger. Ranger takes a pop shot at one, and here is something unexpected, but I'm squirreling away for a future idea. He manages to I sort of allowed this to happen. We managed to one-shot this werewolf, which was the other werewolf's partner, and kill it. So the other werewolf howls in pain, and there's a wee chase, and they get away. But they made a new lifelong enemy in this one, so that will come back to potentially haunt them, as it were. We carry on the journey, and it's not long before we meet our destination for this session, the Hooded Man Inn, the roadside inn that they were told about that they can spend the night before carrying on their journey. It is a inn. It's by a river. There's a river nearby. The inn is behind a palisaded wall, 12-foot high wall. Because you want to protect yourselves on the road out this far out from any town or city. They can see the gates are shut. They can see 3 buildings nearby inside the palisade. There is the inn. They can see a coach house and what must be a stables. Nearby, though, just down by the river, they can see another building, a ferry building, and there indeed is a ferry going across the river. So you can reach this place by river or by carriage. They arrive at the doors and try the gates with the rain and wind lashing down on them, but they will not open. They are locked, which seems odd. Perhaps the first part of the all's not right with your adventure here, DM part, but still they're not thinking anything. They're just thinking, okay, we're quite late. They're obviously locked up, so I wanted to try and introduce weirdness and strange things, but not too much all at once. So yeah, Gelfenwith heads down to the ferry house to see if there's a ferryman in the hut that could let them in. Well, Walker sort of examines the gates and decides he's going to try and scale them. He has a rope, he has a grappling hook, he has a good dexterity, so this should be easy, and he can open up the gates on the other side. They've got a bar across and let the coach in, and Arthur, the coach driver, can put it in the coach house and they can enter the inn. Job done. End of session. Right? Okay. He makes his first roll. And it fails. And so what we do is he tugs on the rope. It was this kind of foul. He tugged on the rope. It seemed fine. He starts climbing, and then it comes down and clocks me on the head. It was a 1 that he rolled. So we had a bit of damage. Not a lot. Just 1d4's worth of damage as it bashes him on the head. Gelfenwith goes down to the ferry house calling out, but there's no answer. She has a quick look round, and there is some sort of wet patch coming from the door leading up towards the coach house, towards the gate of the coaching inn, but then the rain washes out what's there. She bends down and it's a dark red liquid, but then the rain quickly washes it away. She doesn't have a chance to see exactly what it is. We know it's blood. Inside, she pokes her head in, and there looks like there has been signs of a struggle, but nothing else is in there. She walks up to the gate. There's 2 gates, the one where the coach would enter and the one where you'd enter if you go there by ferry. That gate is unlocked, so she pushes it open. Meanwhile, Walker is trying to get over again and once more fails. Back to Gelfenwith. She looks inside. She can see lights on in the inn, and she sort of hear rumours and murmurings from inside, like there are people in there talking and chatting, but still no one is about in the courtyard. She hears horses in distress in the stables, so she goes to the stables, flies open the doors, and the horses stampede out. Just in time, she dodges out the way, but at the same time this is going on, Walker has managed to get over the fence, open the gates to let Arthur and the carriage in, as all of a sudden Gelfenwith gets stampeded and takes damage from the horses. He dodges out the way, but his luck's finally in on his dex rolls, and the horses bolt it out into the night. Gelfenwith is now bruised and bloodied. Walker is bruised and bloodied from trying to get over the fence. She doesn't examine the stables to see what was causing the horses' distress. There is someone in here, but I won't go into this just yet. With that, they walk to the inn door and go to open it, and it's locked from the inside. With that, they bang on the door, and there is the murmuring from inside suddenly drops, and then there's footsteps, and the door opens a crack, and there is an enormous innkeeper here, and he is a bit, they can tell he's a bit surprised to see them. They do get passage inside. He opens the door after a bit of to and fro-ing, and they sit on the table near the door. The wolf is in as well. That probably put the innkeeper off. That's what they sort of get. The innkeeper's probably put off by the fact there's a big dire wolf in here with them, because he seems standoffish, like he doesn't want them in here. They order some drinks. Now, I've already made a big point of saying Gellin said this place has the finest wine he's ever tasted in this region, which is going to be a clue, but they don't order the wine at first, they order beer. So the innkeeper brings the beer out, and they order some food as well. They taste the beer, and it is full. It is foul. It is just slop. So they ditch that, and then they remember, perhaps we should order wine. Perhaps their beer's just rubbish, but they because they're a wine bar. So they order wine and some food again. I said I'd ordered food earlier on, but it's at this point they order the food. They taste the wine, and that is foul too. Like it's sour. Like something's off. And they're surprised because I made a big point of Skell and Sand that it's the best wine. So they've got that going on. At that point, inside the inn, amongst the weird looking regulars, is a road warden. Now he walks up to them in an official capacity and starts interviewing them quite harshly, which puts them off a bit. And they're just about to say, well, hang on, there's some weird stuff going on here, when he sort of says, he's sort of aware of it. There has been some bandit raids tonight around this area, and some people have been killed, which immediately Gelfenwith sort of thinks, oh, that's what happened to the ferryman. That's why the horses were put out. There's been trouble here. But it was done in such a way, like the rogue warden said, they were suspects. He was interviewing them. They're now prime suspects in what is going on. That is why the innkeeper was put out. At this time, they noticed that by the kitchen door there is a guy mopping the floor religiously. He is mopping away, and when they look at him, he quickly goes into the kitchen with the innkeeper. They Gelfenwith lets the rogue warden know about the suspected blood she found in the ferry house. So he goes out and says he's going to inspect that. At this point, Walker decides something doesn't feel quite on the level here, and goes and has a earwig at the kitchen door. What he notices as well, the bucket that was mopped, or was being used to mop up the floor, has red coloured liquid in it. Again, not enough to be blood, but it's putting him up. Making him feel uneasy, and he listens at the door, and he can hear two voices, one the innkeeper and the other obviously the guy doing the mopping, and he overhears what he thinks they're talking about is putting something called curds into their food, and that will send them to sleep so they can carry on doing what they're doing. He scurries back to Gelfenwith and lets her know not to eat the food. It comes out, and there's probably no chance of them eating the food anyway, because it's a disgusting looking gruel. So they don't really eat it anyway. They try and barter a room for the night, but the innkeeper is apprehensive about letting them stay. He sort of says that they've got a coaching party that arrived this evening from a noble family from the capital city, so there's no room here for them. But after much persuasion, he decides that they can sleep in the common room in the inn. We have a little bit of role playing with the rogue warden again, still trying to say there he thinks he has a bit of suspicion about them, and please don't do anything dangerous or sketchy. He will have to arrest them, but they soon decide to retire for the evening. The innkeeper shows them up to their room, which is upstairs all the way through the inn, and to a common room, a disgusting common room that overlooks the courtyard opposite the stables. As they go in, they begin to settle down. What they don't notice when they they do, and they hear the lock as the innkeeper leaves, locking them into the common room. Walker waits to hear the innkeeper leave, and then picks the lock and opens the door and looks outside. There's nothing there, so he closes the door again, goes back inside, and decides that they're going to sleep here, but they're going to take shifts like you would in the wild, and he will take first watch. It's during this time they failed to notice that someone had crept up to the hallway and was listening in, and then slips back out into the night. It's also at this time when Walker is making these plans that he looks out across the courtyard to the stables and sees the innkeeper go into the stables. And then there's a bit of a wait, and then he leaves with someone else, which is the person that was in the stables causing the horse distress. This man was a cannibal and was actually eating the real stable boy up in the hayloft. So if Gelfenwith had it explored, she would have discovered him there, but she didn't. And he joins the innkeeper into the inn. With this, Walker begins to stealth out into the hallway. It's dark, it's quiet. It's been about an hour or so since they've gone up to the room now. They were expecting maybe trouble in the room, like them to get attacked, but it hasn't happened. So he tries the other doors to the other rooms, and they're locked, as one would expect if the rooms are occupied. But he picks the locks and enters and finds no one in the rooms. But there does seem to be a sign of trouble. He goes back and awakens Gelfenwith at this point, and they decide to explore and check out what is going on. So, room by room, they stealth it, open it, enter, and most of the rooms seem like they have been occupied, but they're no longer occupied, and there are signs of trouble. One room they enter is obviously the innkeeper's room, and there is a portrait of them on the wall, of the innkeeper and his wife. And what they notice is the picture on the wall is not who they've been dealing with tonight. Now they are really creeped out. What is going on here? What is happening? What have we stumbled upon? So they descend downstairs, stealthily, quietly down the stairs. The inn common room downstairs is empty. The bar is empty, except for Ranger catches a glimpse of someone going behind the bar and opening the trapdoor and then closing it. Gelfenwith, with her elf boots, is trying to stealth down the stairs too, and somehow she managed to fail this. She has advantage on this roll. And so what we have is, it's not too noisy, but she's doing that thing they do in cartoons where over-exaggeration of tiptoeing. I don't know if you see that proper Scooby-Doo I'm thinking of here, where they're all creeping through, but it's quite loud. And when she gets down the stairs, Walker gives her a look of, could you have been any more louder? Luckily, no one's heard, because the bar by this time is already empty. They enter, have a look around a bit more for a few more bits and pieces, see what they can see. They find the mop and bucket, have a better look in it this time, and they can see indeed this has been used to clear up. They then proceed to the trapdoor to obviously the tavern, the inn's cellar. They open it up carefully and look inside, and it's empty. They drop down in there, they have a look, go down the stairs, and there's just nothing here. So where has that guy gone? So that now gives them the idea there must be a secret door or entrance or something in here. They check the walls and there is nothing, and then they think, they thought they can hear chanting coming from underground. Weird, evil chanting. And that gives them the idea to search the flagstone floor. And they do, and they find that one of the stones can be lifted, and there is indeed another level to this place. With no light above, no light shines through, luckily, and they carefully peer in, and they can see two octagonal chambers. At one end, in the smaller of the one, they can see a winged demon stone statue, and around that are some hooded figures. Standing in front of that is the innkeeper, the guy with the mop, the guy that Walker saw coming from the stables, and even the road warden is there, luckily all facing away from them towards the statue. They are chanting, there is some sort of evil going on here. In the other corner, in the bigger chamber at the back, they can see what looks like to be some bodies. Some people seem to be alive. They recognise the actual innkeeper and his wife tied up from the picture above. Now, there is a time limit here before the ceremony is performed and the statue becomes what I called a spawn of Orcus. These are cultists of Orcus trying to bring forth the destruction, chaos, the end of the world as we know it. So as I said, there's a time limit. If the players had acted quicker, they could have prevented the ceremony, disrupted the ceremony, and it would have been an easier game. Still quite creepy, but an easier session. But they're really cautious, as you would expect. They come in, position themselves, and try to do their best to see what's going on. They get themselves into position, and the chanting is more frantic. There is a crescendo happening here, and just as they are about to act, it ends. Suddenly the statue is replaced with a spawn of Orcus. This is an Orcus model from the 80s from Grenadier. It is actually Orcus, but I wanted something bigger if we ever meet him, so I used it as a minor evil thing rather than Orcus himself. As Orcus comes to life, he actually kills the head cultists, because these are not very competent cultists. They're quite new at this. They forgot to cast a binding spell, so this thing doesn't care that they're worship Orcus. It just wants death and destruction, so it kills that thing, causing a bit of panic. With that, Gelfenwith strikes, casting some sort of fireball spell that she has that almost obliterates the whole cultist, because she had positioned herself to get the best. It's a cone, a 15-foot cone, but she positions herself anyway and takes out most of them. They're not very high P. I did promise this wasn't going to be a very high combat game, and it hasn't been, and this still isn't. They could have, if they'd have done this before the end of the ceremony, what happens after this would have been a lot easier. Ranger lets loose some arrows into Orcus, but they do nothing. They actually do nothing. And then all heck breaks loose. Orcus' weapons are doing nothing. Gelfenwith's fire spells are doing nothing, and they're in full panic mode now. They are getting slightly ripped to pieces. I'm thinking, we could be on TPK in this session, on this throwaway session. Well, not a throwaway session, my surprise Halloween session, but not part of any greater narrative, really, although it is now. Yes, and it's at that point where I knew how to kill this thing without fighting. You could fight it if you had the right tools, magical weapons, non-fire spells would do it. But the statue that it sort of appeared from, smash that and you almost kill it instantly. Obviously smashing the statue itself is a feat, but probably easier than going head to head with the demon thing, because the statue's not going to fight you back. So there's a realization from Walker, and he doesn't tell Gelfenwith this. He just runs off into the other room, and in game and on the table, the player Gelfenwith sort of shouts at him, "Oi, what are you doing leaving me here with this big thing?" She goes down to death saves as well at this. As he runs off, she gets swiped and taken out. No hit points left. I do use the 5e death saves. It allows stuff like this to happen. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with 5e in general, to be honest. Anyway, Walker's there. He's now trying to shove the statue off. The direwolf is not here because they couldn't get him down, or if they could get him down, how are they going to get him back up into a hole in the ceiling? So there, it's just the two of them, really. He's trying to push this statue now as Orcus is spawn of Orcus is coming back to the Ranger. And it's really tight, but he manages to destroy the statue before the spawn gets to him, and that ends the Night of Blood. A lot of people have died here who were in the tavern. Luckily, the innkeeper is still alive, and his wife is still alive, and one of their servants are. They help him back upstairs, and they relax and wait out for the sun to rise. And in the morning, a patrol of rogue wardens appear, and I should point out that the rogue warden they met earlier, they examined his body. What they failed to notice when they were upstairs is his coat at the back had knife wounds puncturing in and and was bloodstained. He had obviously murdered a rogue warden and took his coat. So when the other rogue wardens enter, they had discovered the corpse on the roadside and were now looking for the perpetrator. Again, they're sort of suspicious of the players, but then the innkeeper does explain exactly what's going on here. And that is where we leave this session. And we carry on our journey to Mirham for the nicely promised, just easy bodyguard job next week. This game was a surprise to my players because they were not expecting a proper Halloween game of a creepy night at an inn. I really enjoyed this session, even though it was quite localised, not just a night at a tavern, but it was great fun. But that's it for this one, guys. Until the next one, stay safe, take care.